one point, my wife was changing his Broviac, which is a central line, and he just gave out a burst. It's not fair. Now, I did what any normal father would do under circumstances like that. I mean, I'm the responsible party here, and I ran out into the bathroom crying. For Shlay and Blumla, we wrote a Sefer Torah, and then for Rifki, we wrote a Sefer Torah, and Simchas Torah. I hold one of those Torahs that when I dance, and I feel like I'm dancing with them.
Hand in Hand explores life's toughest moments and the resilience that carries us through. I'm your host, Amanda Spiro. Together, we'll dive into stories of grief, healing, and hope, blending timeless Jewish wisdom with personal journeys and universal truths. Let's navigate life's challenges and uncover the paths that lead us to greater meaning and connection. Welcome back. I'm your host, Amanda Spiro, and this is the final episode of the first season of the Hand in Hand podcast. After hearing from our previous guests, ordinary people who have faced extraordinary challenges, we thought it'd be fitting to sit down with Rabbi Yisroel Deren, who is not just a rabbi, but also a parent who has experienced profound loss on an unimaginable level. And instead of retreating from life, him and his beautiful wife, Vivy, transformed their loss into purpose, and in the process have helped others better understand and navigate grief. Thank you, Rabbi, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Before we get into your perspective of loss and how you dealt with all your challenges, can you just tell us a little bit about your story?
Well, I'm going to begin my story
Rivalde.
at the time that my wife and I were in Yechidus, had a private audience with the Rebbe before our marriage. And he gave us a bracha. I don't think it was unique to us, but he gave us this bracha.
Lesson, yeah.
Ihr wird machen lichtig und warm bei anderen. You will make it light and warm by others. Und der Eibishter wird machen lichtig und warm bei euch. And God will make it warm and bright by you. And this is what we lived for. This is what we live with. He didn't put it in terms of you should make it light, but it was a statement. This is what you're going to be doing for the rest of your lives. You're going to be making it warm and light for others. And Hashem, this is what he's going to be doing for you. He's going to be making it bright and warm for you. Now, I have to say, looking back at Baruch Hashem, more than 50 years of marriage, that has been absolutely true. And honestly speaking, I cannot think of a time in our lives that we didn't at some level feel that. It wasn't always right out there in the open, but it was and is a bedrock of our, and that knowing that it's there and tuning into it, or somehow actually, it's there, and it gives us the ability to go further forward. We had 8 children, and when our youngest Shlay was 3, he was diagnosed with a tumor. Actually, I was in Russia at the time, and my wife came back, and Shlay was scheduled for an operation and the doctor was very optimistic. He said, this is the kind of thing that happens, and the tumor is removed, and it's all good. Okay, Baruch Hashem. And he went through the surgery, which was a very difficult surgery. It was abdominal surgery. And at one point, about a week later, when we're still in the hospital, and the surgeon says, well, one of the slides came back, and it could be that it wasn't entirely um, uh, isolated. So just to be on the safe side, he's going to schedule a series of treatments, which he underwent and which were not easy for a little boy. But, and finally at the end of them, and they did a PET scan and another CAT scan, and he was clear. And we were beyond delighted. And then about a half a year later, the exact times there are not clear in my mind, but how long exactly it was, but we got a call from the doctor that one of the tests, it seems that there's a problem. Actually, leukemia or pre-leukemia condition. And, to come in, and began the whole process. And the suggested treatment was a bone marrow transplant. And we were lucky. We found a donor after, I don't know how long it was, a couple of months, whatever. And Shlay is now back in the hospital to begin the process of getting. And this process was, it was very difficult. I mean, very, very difficult, especially for a little boy. By now he was 5.5. And he was in semi-isolation and then total isolation. And, well, today it's not a big deal to know when you have to wear masks and gowns and so on. Unfortunately, everybody did that now. But in those days, it was a big deal. And yet, Shlomi was the one who was always, it's going to be good. And to the point, at one point, this was perhaps a week before he passed away. And we saw him playing with a boat. And we asked him, what is it? And he says, well, we're going to have the Suda Seidah, okay, the thank you meal for Hashem.
Right.
We're going to do it on a boat. And I'm going to invite everybody except for the doctor, who wasn't his favorite person. She was the one who was poking him always. But things didn't work out, and the transplant didn't work. And at one point, we were called in, and the doctor, they called in a doctor who was from a religious doctor who had been peripherally involved, but they wanted him to be there. When they told us that there was no hope, there was nothing they could do, and they don't foresee anything. So we asked, is there anything? And they were like, then she said, well, then I'm not interested in continuing this discussion. I'd rather spend my time with Shlomi. And we were there in his room. We turned the room into what is, we called it the happy room. Only happy music, a sign on the door, don't come in here unless you're happy and you're going to make people happy. And, just with a sense of hope, okay, even though the doctors say there's no hope, but there's a little while before this, at one point, my wife was changing his Broviac, which is a central line, and it had to be done under sterile conditions. And this was something that he had and she had been doing for already years, but it was always something that made him nervous because keeping everything in the right place, sterile, non-sterile, and this, and he would always be. And now it's happening in this room. Okay, my wife is covered with all of and he just gave out a burst. It's not fair. Now, I did what any normal father would do under circumstances like that. I mean, I'm the responsible party here, and I ran out into the bathroom crying. My wife is stuck. She's in the middle of this procedure. And she says to him, Shlomi, you're right. It's not fair. But that's what golus is. We're in golus now. We're in exile now. We aren't where we want to be. And in golus, in exile, that's what happens. Hashem doesn't want little boys to have broviacs. And Shlomi says, I think it was at this time, not just Jewish little boys, even not Jewish ones, he doesn't want. And of course, but this is what happens in golus. And he thinks for a moment, closes his eyes, and it was like a shout. This golus stinks. In my life, I've never heard a more profound or true theological exclamation. It was like, yeah, that's exactly what it is. And we lived with this notion of tracht gut wird sein gut. Think good and it'll be good. And this is what we learned things about that. We lifted. And Hashem had other plans. It was several days actually after the doctor said, and again, things turned around. I mean, he was at one point, he was already like not conscious because of infection that had taken over his entire body. And then Friday night, the doctor comes in and says, actually, the infection seems to have gone away. Yeah, and we could see also in the way he was more comfortable, which was impossible. How did it go away? And we just assumed, we'd seen this already over the last 3 years where stuff that shouldn't have happened. So we were very hopeful on Shabbos, but then Shabbos afternoon we saw that by this point, all of his siblings were in the hospital with us, except, and the youngest above him, Rifki. So she was together with one of my siblings, I guess, in the Ronald McDonald house. And we just stood around his bed and we sang and we sang and we sang. This one on until about 1 o'clock in the morning, Matzai Shabbat. And we were singing the Rebbe's Hakafas Niggin, the niggin that the Rebbe would sing. Actually, the Rebbe's father would sing Simchas Torah when he would take the Torah. And while we were singing that song, is when Hashem took us. A short while after that, maybe an hour or two later, we were still waiting in the hospital. And I opened up Hayom Yom, which is the first book that the Rebbe wrote. It's like a calendar with a saying taken from the works of the previous Rebbe, his father-in-law, for each day. And I looked on that day, which was the 12th of Teves. And this is what the Rebbe writes. He says, when my father, referring to the 5th Rebbe, was appointed Gabbai of the Chevra Kadisha of the Burial Society, which was an honorary role. When when my father was appointed Gabbai of the Chevra Kadisha, he was escorted to shul, as was the custom, with singing and dancing. When he came into the shul, he said a Maimer Chassidic discourse on the verse, the Talmudic verse, Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba b'turnia and b'riyosef. God doesn't give us a load that we can't handle. And explained that in these last days of golus, our job isn't to question, our job is to do. I paraphrase. And I'm looking at it and thinking, my goodness, Chevra Kadisha, which what we were waiting for, Simchas Torah song, God doesn't give us more than we can handle. Now the point is not to question, now it's time to act. So that was Shlay.
Wow. And you had more other kids after that?
Yes. Less than a year later, I was still saying Kaddish for Shlay. And Shlay, we had our 5th daughter, our 5th child. It was actually 2nd daughter, 5th child. Actually, of all the children, she was, everybody, who doesn't love the youngest, of course, but she was like his little mommy, she was very close to him. And she was diagnosed with a liver tumor. Now, actually, it was in the summer. So it was about 6 months afterwards. It was in the summer. And she, it was, I can't tell you the definition of devastation. And we were in the hospital, when and by that end, everybody came to me, it was there were pre-diagnoses, but this was to find out, what is it? And, the doctor came and said, yeah, this is what it is. And the first thing we had as it's going to be good. It doesn't matter. It's going to be good. Now, it's something one strives for, and one assumes that if it's difficult for you, it's certainly difficult for your children. But, it was important for us to continue to give all of them, including Blumla, of course, okay, the feeling of it's going to be good. And we did everything that the doctors suggested that we do. And to the point that they suggested that she needs a liver transplant, and we were looking for a liver transplant. And actually, we went with her to California, and while we were there, she passed away. So that's Blumla. Shortly after that, we got a call, I think it was from Toronto, that they wanted us to come to speak. After Shlay, when Shlay got sick, it was the whole community that was with us and with him. When we came back to the house after the funeral, we spent that day and the rest of the Shiva comforting our community.
Which is probably a lot of pressure. You probably wanted to be carried during this period of time, but you felt this obligation to show up for your community.
Do you
feel that sense of pressure?
I didn't.
You felt like it was
genuine. If anything, I was grateful for it.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, because I needed to hear the words that I said.
Right.
And because we both felt that we're on shlichus, and our job is to make it warm and bright for others.
Right.
And that didn't stop, because of this. And if anything, now, when Blumla passed away a year later, it was actually Hanukkah, following Hanukkah, we came back to I barely could get into my own house. I mean, it was like, and after Mincha, I went to light the menorah. And I'm not even sure if I'm supposed to light the menorah, but in any case, I did. And
tell anyone. We won't tell anyone.
No, just do it. Yeah. And I knew I had to say something. Mm-hmm. And I said, I turned around, I looked at it, and I said, I just figured something out. It says Hanukkah has two parts. Hanukkah has the victory, the military victory over the Greeks, or the Greek Syrians, or Syrian Greeks, whatever it is. And it has the miracle with the menorah, with the candle that should have been lit for one and burned for 8 days. Of the two, you'd think that the miracle we ought to be celebrating is the one that's why we're here. We won. And instead we celebrate with the little candles. I just figured it out. You see, candles are made out of oil, which always rises to the top. And it's symbolic, I'll use the Kabbalistic phrase, chachmas dima'a, which is the highest level in a human being that's beyond even perception. I could give it another name, I think that is a more relatable name, and that is faith. And that is something that we all think we don't have. And if we do, because we're not going to be that dishonest, but just a drop. And Hanukkah shows us that little drop of faith that you think is enough for one night, and perhaps not even the entire night, actually is enough for 2, 3, for how much? For as long as you need it. That's what every one of us has. And that's what keeps all of us going. Shortly after that is when we got a request to come to Toronto for a Shabbaton and to share our story. And they asked us to give a title, how we wanted. And I think, I don't know, it was my wife or I, or both of us agreed the best would be The Freak Show Goes North. It's like, but it wasn't. But then we did something. But we agreed to do it because we felt that if what we have can help someone else, then we have a responsibility to do it. And from then on, we've accepted invitations from all over the world to speak on basically on this subject in one form or another. What I learned is that everybody is carrying a load.
Everyone has a story.
Every single person has a story.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not, thankfully, not necessarily the story of the loss of a child, but of profound loss and hurt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what we had to say, we knew needed to be heard by almost everyone that was willing to listen, and of course, most of all, by ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
10 years later, it was during the, I believe it was the Kinus HaShluchos, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So my daughter, Mendel, it was our second son, married, and his wife was at the Kinus, and he was in Stanford for some reason, I don't recall, but he had a terrible cough. And went to the emergency room because it was just the cough was terrible. And he comes back about 3 hours later, just a minute, and he says, "Ta, that's what they said." And I said, "Okay, it's going to be good. We're going to beat it." And it's absolutely there's. And we beat what we needed to beat. But Hashem needed Mendel back. 5 years later, it was Rifki. Rifki had a syndrome. It's called Blumla syndrome.
Okay.
And one of the, it presents it mostly in upper respiratory infections, small stature, sensitive skin, and a propensity towards tumors.
Mm-hmm.
Since it's a genetic condition, Rifki was involved with a organization with Chai Lifeline, and then with Kids of Courage.
Right. And
actually, she once on a trip with Kids of Courage, and she was all in with this. She spoke in the Hollywood home of a very prominent producer. Forgive me, I don't remember his name. I couldn't give you the name of a single producer, but in any case, and he was very taken with her. A child of his, son, daughter, I don't know, also had Blumla syndrome, which is why, and he was so taken with Rifki, he said he wants to do a film about Jewish genetic diseases to raise awareness, and he asked Rifki if she would, and she said, of course. And he came to Stanford and filmed Rifki and myself, my wife, and so on, and put together this film that I didn't see at the time. Maybe I did or didn't notice. We know Rifki was computer savvy.
Mm-hmm.
We were sure that she knew exactly what her condition was, and there was no secrets about it. and that we could keep from her. And she says at one point when the guy's questioning her about her attitude, she says, I know that the average life span is 29, but I'm going to live a full life and I'm going to be myself. She did that, Phil, and several others. Actually, even today, you can go on.
I'd love to see it.
It's absolutely worth Googling or AIing, whatever.
Right.
Rifki Berman Deren, or Rifki Deren Berman. Okay, but she was like so, absolutely. And she had always had respiratory problems that were very difficult. At one point, a doctor said to her, or said to me, not to her, but she was 7. She says, this is not just going to keep getting worse, and she'll need a lung transplant. So I said to him, okay, so we'll do a lung transplant. And he said, no, they'll never give her a lung transplant. And she went, actually, and then it came to the point where we went to Colombia, which was the first place we had to go to because this is the area that we're in. And we were there for a whole day of tests. And at the end of it, the doctor calls us in, or it was 2 doctors, and they said that she's not a candidate because of her condition and the underlying stuff. And and like she just looks at him and she says, well, how do you know? Like, how do you know one of your transplants, people are going to not walk right out of here and get hit by a bus? What are you looking for? He looks at her and says, are you a lawyer? He was seriously. But anyways, so we went and we actually ended up in North Carolina, in Duke. And they said, yeah, we'll take you and we'll give you. And they did. And she had a lung transplant. And actually, we were going to do, and she was by this point already engaged or about to be engaged and so on with a beautiful young man. Wanted to do it before. The doctor said, no, let's wait till after. She had the wedding that she was dreaming for all her life, or since she was old enough to know what being a bride is, which probably 3 or 4. It was a magical wedding, literally. It was 700-800 people, and it was, and a marriage that was everything she wanted it to be. Her husband, Shmuley, they were. And the doctor, at one point, she wanted to know about going to. She calls us up and she said, "Ma, we're going to Italy for Pesach." And my mother, what? To Italy for what? Said, yeah. I asked the doctor. He said it's okay. and she went to Italy. They ran the American Seder in Rome. It was. She lived. And she did things, and she was. At one point, after when the transplant was fine, but then she ran into problems with the lung, not entirely unusual, unexpected, and started to have to be back in the hospital. She had to move to be near the hospital, and then at one point she was actually in the ICU. It was Purim, and she had planned on having a Purim party on the nearby campus of North Carolina State, I think. And she was directing Shmuley from the ICU using FaceTime or Zoom, whatever it was, to direct how she'd set up the room for the Purim party that was going to take place to us from her ICU bed. Things that weren't getting better, and there was this. Rifki was with it. She was contemporary. Let's put it this way, and stuff kept worse and worse until. And
speechless.
It was actually almost a year later. I discovered it after she passed away. It was on Memorial Day. I remember we started making arrangements to bring her back to New York, and I called the Delta, and they said, "Well, it's Memorial Day." It's a Memorial Day. What's like now? It's not. And that was how out of it we were. And actually, I think it was High Lifeline or Hatzah. Somebody sent a private jet to bring her back to New York. That was once again we felt contained, and since that time, we were just we can do it, and and I don't have that feeling we can do it. I'm not challenged. My wife, we have challenges. There are plenty of challenges. Okay, they're stupid ones. Like we're doing a barbecue at the end of the week, and we're not sure exactly how much furniture we need to have. But those are the challenges that we.
Right. I actually took it upon myself not to read so much about you because I know there's a lot out there. I really wanted it to be an organic conversation, just hearing it for the very first time. But I happened to read the book, just finished it actually, On Purpose. And you were mentioned, you and your wife, in this book. And it was really sharing, a lot of things that you've already shared, but this idea that you've really transformed your pain into purpose, that it spoke about one of your children was in the hospital for a while, and you were kind of going back and forth, and you were finding it very hard to balance your time from the hospital to your home with the other children and also for your community. And you reached out to the Rebbe and you spoke to the secretary, and the secretary told you that this is exactly where you need to be. This is your shluchus now, divine providence. And everything shifted for you at that moment, and you became like the head shliach of the hospital. And the Rebbe spoke so much about a hospital as a place of healing, and you really healed so many people, and you were putting on tefillin and going to visit people, and you really had a purpose. But, just hearing what you had to say and reading this, like, how did you have the strength for all this? Like, how is this even possible? It doesn't sound real.
That story happened at the very beginning of our shlichus.
Okay.
I'll be honest. Until this moment, when you said it, I didn't hear. I didn't read the book you're talking about.
Right.
The fact that it was instant. The reason you're there, quote, is not chas v'shalom, so that you should have akbas nefesh, that you should have pain. It's because you have a shlichus there. Find it and do it. Is actually, That's exactly what we've carried forward.
Wow. I also heard you say that sadness can cause loneliness. Can you expand on that?
Well, I actually said it within the context of trying to understand happiness. And I figured, let's take a look at the opposite of happiness, which is sadness. And what is sadness? And for me, at least, a person who's sad feels alone. You could be in a room with 1,000 people, and I'm all alone. A shout out to YY.
Okay, YY Jacobson.
YY Jacobson. I heard him once say, on a tape, actually. This was before the days of podcasts.
Right.
It was a tape on Tanya, where it was the description, and let me take a step back. A friend, I think it was actually during shiur, right after one of the time, when came over to me and he said, there's a pasuk in Tehillim, Psalms, where David HaMelech says and asks God, Samchenu, make us happy, kemeis inisanu, like the days of our suffering. And, the days of our suffering, make us happy like the days of our happiness. What's this idea of make us happy like the days of our suffering? And he said, when a person is happy, like, you have the wedding of your only daughter, happier than that. And nevertheless, even then, there's time to be angry at the caterer, at the musicians, at the mechutanim. Even in the biggest happiness, there's still room for aggravation.
Right.
You manage to find space.
Right.
God forbid, when there's a tragedy, there's no room for anything. It's all black.
Right.
The world turns black. I don't want to hear anything.
Right.
And that's what YY said. And when you don't want to hear anything because it's all black, it's on the pasuk. Well, the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya, Yoshev b'seiser elyon, God sits in that hidden place. A hidden place is a black place. It's like you can't see anything. It's hidden. Everything is hidden. It's all black.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, in that blackness, you realize you're not alone there. That's exactly where Hashem is.
Right.
And you're not alone.
Right.
And just knowing that you're no longer alone.
Right. I think we often give so much power to people, right? It's almost like a knee-jerk reaction when we're going through something that we just want to reach out to others and we want to hear what other people have to say. But often just sitting in those quiet moments is when you are able to find God. We're never, like you said, we're really never alone. But we sometimes don't even try to access that godliness. We just kind of reach out to other people.
Because we think we don't have it.
Right.
We think if at best there may be this little drop, I'm not going to go get anything from that little drop of oil.
Right.
Okay, without realizing it's a magical drop.
Right.
It's Hashem himself.
Right. I think it's also sometimes when you're sharing and you feel like you're not necessarily heard or people don't really understand what you're going through, even if they've been through loss, that could feel lonely. So sometimes it's almost easier not to share what you're going through, but to really just reach out to God.
Somebody once said that if he had his druthers, he'd write a book called Stupid Things People Say During Shiva.
I have some of those.
No, everyone does, okay? Yeah, you have to reach out to others as well.
Right.
I'm not, but the real answer isn't going to come from outside. It's going to come from inside. It's going to come from.
That's where we find all of the answers, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
There's no question. But I think the point or the imperative is to get people to understand that it's there.
Right.
And that you don't have to have a beard and payas or, be some super religious. It's there in every single Jew. It's in every single human being.
Right.
And
it's in our DNA.
Yeah.
To have faith and
that's the definition of a human being.
Right.
It's somebody who God himself put into the world to make a difference.
Right.
And didn't put animals in to make a difference. Animals are there to help human beings in one form or another. Plants and all the rest. Human beings, Jews, we're here to make a difference. And he's not going to send us on a path of go make a difference alone.
Right.
Hello?
Do you feel like people are uncomfortable with your grief? It's one thing to lose one child, which people have a hard time facing. And, but to lose 4 children, it must have been hard for people to support you in the way they wanted to support you. And it sounds like you felt this, like you said.
In our family, when you say, and I punched him in the stomach, what it means to say, I told him our story. Okay? Yes, but I'll tell you, we are very public people. And I know that there are those that have the experience of after a tragedy, even people close to them don't talk to them.
Right, they run away.
They run away because they're afraid and to say anything. And probably did have a little bit of that after Shlay. But after Blumla, by that point already, it was like, yeah, I mean, I can't understand how they can do it, but they're doing it, so I don't have to be afraid.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And it sounds like not only did you just help your community, but you helped individuals from all over the world.
Oh yeah. I mean,
this was just by traveling and sharing your story.
That's what my wife does. Most of her time is taken up on the telephone with people from all over the world.
How do you feel that having godliness and having that spirituality in your life changes grief? The experience of grief.
When I'm grieving, it's when I'm feeling sorry for myself. I feel sorry for myself because I feel alone. That's when you feel sorry for yourself. I'm not being understood. I've been given a raw deal. I've been, etc., etc. As my wife puts it, it's just a matter of one word. One extra word causes all the problems. It's not why is God picking on me. It's why is God picking me. And that changes the picture. I I'm not an angel.
Do you ever have hard moments?
More often than I should.
Mhm.
Yes, of course I do. Because I allow the petty part of myself, as it were,
Right.
or the pity party of myself, to sort of, get up there and do its thing.
Mhm.
I don't know if it's a he or a she, but it does its thing.
Right.
Okay, and then then I do, and but there's an answer. See, it's one is lucky when one is a shliach. You always have someone else to help. Someone is always relying on you.
Right.
As a matter of fact, my guilt is because of all of those people that are relying on me that I haven't yet taken care of and given them what I can possibly give them. Are you going to ask me, do I have guilt? Quite
Right. It's human.
oodles of it. Okay?
Right.
But I also have at least enough of a self-awareness to know that there's nothing to feel guilty. Well, even there isn't really is irrelevant as far as going forward.
Mhm.
As far as what's behind you, when you're finished with everything in front of you, you have time to look at what's behind you. But until then, there's no
Do you ever
useful
rest?
purpose for it.
Even Shabbos, you're working.
I feel guilty that I rest too much, of course. I feel resting right now.
You're
actually.
relaxed?
Yeah, pleasure. My phone is off. No one's bothered me.
And when you struggle with these difficult moments that you have a hard time and you feel guilty about maybe, what helps you through these moments?
Well, I'll start with my wife.
Mm-hmm.
That's number one. But honestly, learning, specifically learning Chassidus. I'm not even talking about like things like Shara B'tochen.
Right.
I know, but
Gates of trust.
the gates of trust, which is,
Incredible.
doesn't need my approbation. But speaking only for myself, there's a bad place and there's a good place. Call it this world and that world, the material world, the spiritual world, Olam Haza, Olam Haba, whatever it is. And as human beings, we live in both. And the question is, where are we going to focus? And the way to focus on higher is to just pull yourself higher. Now, you can't pull yourself up by your hair, but you can pull yourself up learning Chassidus. And for me, I almost feel it's magic. Like one mimer, a second mimer, and all of a sudden the week is a different week. And I attribute it to, you're spending a couple of hours with God himself, as it were, without any distractions. You're just with God in whatever manifestation, but it's clear that it's him. And that is a lifeline that clearly I feel.
Mm-hmm. And how do your other children feel? I mean, you spoke about the ones that passed away who sounded unbelievable and so resilient and had the same positive attitude that you and your wife have. But what about your other children?
Each one of them, in their own right, is outstanding. I'm not saying that as a proud father. I am a proud father, but one can objectively say they are outstanding. And I hear it from others that each and their own, 3 of the 4 of them are actually on shlichus, and they're like beloved by their communities in nothing other than superlatives. That they are
Right.
to the extent of what the loss of their siblings, what part that played in that. I don't know. I mean, who could know? I mean, maybe they're therapists still, but
Right.
I don't know. I just know that we're, Baruch Hashem, a very close family.
Thank God.
There's nothing we enjoy as much as being all together.
So nice.
That is as close to Gan Eden as we get.
You mentioned this earlier, that the soul is eternal and that bond is forever, when someone passes away, they physically leave this world, but that bond between child and parent lasts forever. How do you keep up? Like, how do you nurture that relationship to feel connected to your children who are no longer physically here?
I'm not sure that I do in a particular way. The bond is nurtured by being in that higher place where there is not really much of a separation, where the awareness of souls and of malachim and of godliness and is more of a reality in your life. So, it's we talk about them all the time, right? And I don't know. I miss them terribly. I don't know if I hate Yizkor or if I love Yizkor. I'm not sure. Okay, but of course, it's a very painful time. Why should it be? You're remembering their souls. On the contrary, that's it's this. But
at the same time, you feel so connected.
I feel so connected, and also know that. But I can talk to them, but I can't hear them talk to me.
Right.
And it's and the reason that is because we aren't where we should be, and now while we do this on Yom Tov, it's been the subject of at least 40 of my sermons, but and I still haven't come to a satisfactory explanation. But it's each of our children. One Sefer Torah we wrote for Shlay and Blumla we wrote a Sefer Torah, and then for Rifki we wrote a Sefer Torah, and for Mendel, my son in South Africa, wrote a Sefer Torah. So we have in Stanford we have 2 Sefer Torahs that are and Simchas Torah. I hold one of those Torahs when I dance, and I feel like I'm dancing with them.
Right. So those are the ways to connect, right?
Yeah, I literally feel like I'm dancing with them. That is. It's almost the flip side of Yizkor. Okay, it's like I probably cry more during dancing, but dancing and singing, it's different kind of crying.
Right. I mean, your whole life is dedicated to your children. Everything that you do in this world is because of what you went through.
Isn't every parent that way?
Or that should be.
Strives to be.
Yes. But you really.
The best I could say is we strive to.
Right. So when people are in so much pain and so much sadness, they often turn to temporary distractions, right, to escape that pain. But what would be like deeper, long-lasting ways to find true comfort if someone's listening and they don't even have a relationship with God? What would be the first step?
Well, for me, and this is purely subjective, but for me, the problem isn't the pain, the problem is the depression. In other words, it's not that I'm hurting. I don't know why that is. I'm not going to try and psychoanalyze myself. Okay, at least I was thinking maybe I should, but not this. So now, for others, depression may be pain. Okay, and is processed as pain. And maybe I should be processing it that way. Maybe that would be easier to then jump out of when I need to. But for the person who doesn't have a relationship with God, the answer is have a relationship with God.
Right.
You don't have to do anything to have a relationship with God. I can't tell you, find something artificial to have a relationship with. I mean, you'll do what you want, but it's the only truth that is there. You don't want to call it God. Call it your soul. Call it your the eternal you. Okay, you believe at some point you have this belief that life doesn't end at death.
Right.
It's the most illogical. Well, illogical. I mean, the philosophers have spent millennia trying to deal with it, but it's illogical. Okay, the ones that say it ends, it makes no sense. What left that made this body dead. Well, that which left. So where is it? I mean, at the most simple level, like I don't want to go there. I think realize that you are not alone. And the truth is that when you suffer a loss, God forbid, and there is that sense of abandonment, and it's exactly the time when you are most capable of understanding and realizing that you aren't really alone, and that He is with you. Not in the way that you want Him to be, showering you with the open, revealed blessings that you want and richly deserve. And why? There's no answer to the why, but there's an answer to the what. And the what is He is there, and is waiting for you to realize that. And at that point, you'll be able to be helped by Him.
Right. So it's almost like you have to go through that uncomfortable feeling of feeling that pain and loss and not escaping it. But in that moment, you will be able to find yourself and find God, which will help you heal through this.
Yeah, whether it has to be that way, I don't know. But yeah, that seems to be the way it is.
It's the only way, maybe. So I think you answered this question, that each challenge you went through, each loss, that you were able to find the strength, and you did so much good with all that pain. You really were able to transform it. Did you find that each experience with grief was different, or did you kind of feel like you were revisiting it each time, or you needed new tools or new ways to be able to push you forward, to be able to do all the good you do? It's like you had this big motivation, this big pressure, this responsibility.
I wasn't experiencing grief. I was experiencing the loss of a child.
Right.
And each child was different. So it was a different loss.
My father recently passed away. It's been 8 months. And I sometimes catch myself being really happy and really busy, and I don't think about it so much. But then I feel this guilt. I also have guilt where I'm like, oh my goodness, I haven't thought about my father, or should I be sad right now? It hasn't even been a year. Like, you almost don't know how to be. But
there is that feeling, okay, that of wanting to hold on to the pain, of the loss, as a way of holding on to the one you lost. Okay? Yes, I think that's a very common feeling. And then I've said to many people that losing a child is not like having, losing a table, okay?
Right.
You get over losing a table. You get over cancer. But you never get over an amputation.
Right. Right. It's part of
It
you.
may hurt less. You may learn how to deal with it, but you never get over it.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's there. It's the realization is there. It's, when people ask me, how many children do you have? And do I say 4? Do I say 8?
What do you say?
Well, if somebody is not likely to be finding more out about me, and I say the truth. I have 8 children. I have 4 here and 4 there. But sometimes I have to, when there's no way of getting around it. So you have to say, well, so I say it. I have 4 here and I have 4 in heaven, and they get like this. Oh my God. And which is the truth. It was actually at Blumla's Levaya. And we don't do hesped eulogies and
at our funeral.
But we stopped in front of the Chabad Center, and one of the rabbis spoke. It was on Hanukkah. No, what kind of one of the rabbis? I spoke. I was one who said it. Everybody was there, and I had to say something. So I said that on Hanukkah, we light a menorah with 8 candles. Hashem gave us 8 candles. In Shulchan Aruch it says that B'nai Aliyah, those that are literally live on a second floor, they light their candles on the second floor. And Hashem took 2 of our candles and put them on the second floor. But they're not going to stop shining.
Right.
they're going to continue to birth. So,
Right.
yes, we have 8 children, and we feel all 8 of them.
So special. Why do you think people are so uncomfortable with grief?
Their own or others?
I think both, but more others, actually.
Because a loss, not necessarily of a child, a spouse, or even a parent, a spouse or a child, is so overwhelming, and it is like the worst that a person can possibly imagine to happen. I'll walk right up to somebody who's lost a child and give him a hug and begin talking because I'm comfortable with it since, unfortunately, I felt it. But somebody who's lost a spouse, I'm not comfortable walking up because I don't know. I know that it is so big, it's so overwhelming, and I know nothing about it. Thank goodness, and I never should. But whatever it is that I'll say is not going to be addressing it in the appropriate way. This is what I feel. Now, that's wrong. No one who's suffered a loss is looking for you to take the loss away, okay? But they're looking to not feel alone. And all you need to do is not say, I understand your pain, because you don't understand my pain, but I am here for you. I love you. I'm with you. Let me know that I'm not further than a telephone or even less than that. But the initial feeling of uncomfortableness comes from, I think, just being overwhelmed by the enormity of the loss that person has suffered, and cannot possibly even imagine it in one's own life, thankfully. And that's probably where most of it comes from.
Right. You shared so many different stories and shared so much about what the Rebbe shared with you and the perspective that we should have. But is there like one specific story that you really found brought you great comfort throughout your grieving process or your pain? Something that's universal that you think would help others?
I think that a specific story is, there have been, on our journey, things have happened that have picked us up, but they're fairly subjective. But there's one thing that I think is universal, and that is that there is nothing that can make you happier than making someone else happy. And that you always can put a smile on someone else's face. It may actually require you to put an artificial one on your own. I'll share a story actually that happened with my aunt and uncle. My cousin was one of the 4 students that was injured on the Brooklyn Bridge by the Arab terrorist. And he was shot in the head, and the doctors gave no hope. And I'm not talking about some intern or even, I'm talking about, we brought in the greatest neurologists in the world. But my uncle and aunt, this is a generation higher than me, they certainly live tracht gut wird sein gut.
Right. Think good and it'll be good.
And but things were not looking all that great. But she was, going down to, it was like press there because of and she would tell the reporters, right now you need to know that you're invited to his wedding. Okay, I'm telling you right now, you have the invitation. Actually, the surgeon that operated on him actually was at his wedding. Yeah. Another one claimed, I said it was going to be okay. He was the one who said there was no hope whatsoever. But I'm not going there. At one point, there was a production taking place here in Crown Heights. They were St. Vincent's. We were in St. Vincent's, and someone asked my aunt to come to speak for the girls of Beis Rivka, the girls' high school, to speak because everybody was so taken with her sense of faith and of bitachon, and to share some of that with them. And she came, and actually that day there was like one number that had changed somewhat, perhaps, that. And she got up and she was talking about Baruch Hashem, it's getting better, and she comes back, and she tells my uncle, yeah, I said all of that, but I feel it was like a mask. I put on a mask. And my uncle said to her, but the type of mask that you choose to put on also says something. And so, I think that put on the mask. You need to make somebody happy, even if you don't feel it. You'll feel it. And it's a lifeline. Knowing that others are out there who can't, and when you think, what can I possibly give somebody else? You always have something to give somebody, even as little as a smile. But
right.
You absolutely can give it.
Right. I think nowadays it's also so easy because no one even wants to talk on the phone anymore. Everyone's texting and WhatsApping, just sending a simple message. Telling someone that you're thinking of them. If there's anything they need. Sometimes it's awkward to call someone or in person, but there's always something that could be done.
And in a way that invite a response of, yes, I do need something.
Right.
So you're actually giving something real.
Right.
If in fact they do, and there's something that you can do.
Right.
That's absolutely where to start now.
Right. Well, Rabbi, thank you so much for coming here and sharing your story. I'm sure it's not so easy, but there's so much to learn from everything you shared. And I'm just so awe-inspired by you. And I know I've learned so much, and I'm going to be that much more positive now, just hearing your story. And I think just, interviewing so many different people who have undergone so many challenging moments, what I've recognized is that everyone made a choice when they went through what they went through to connect and to really not feel sorry for themselves, but to have purpose and to do something and to go out of themselves and to be there for others, like you mentioned. And I think really, there's no answers, but I think that brings us closer to what we need to do when we're really suffering.
100%.